Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Silver Certificate, the April deck in the King's Wild Shorts line. Now, King's Wild Shorts is that premium subscription service from King's Wild Project and designer Jackson Robinson, where you get a uniquely inspired deck every single month. But this month's deck is a little bit different for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a remake. This one goes back to one of Jackson's oldest decks, the third deck he ever made, Silver Certificate, and it's a remake of that deck, kind of a reimagining of it for 2021. In that regard, I think it's kind of a cool addition, especially for people that aren't able to get some of those older decks anymore, which are a lot harder to find. And interestingly, this is actually the third currency deck of the year. The previous 2 months featured Federal 52 and Gold Certificate, commemorating the first and second decks that Jackson ever made. So Silver Certificate is both a continuation of a series that's been going on this year and a throwback to an original deck of his. So kind of a cool addition. I'm excited to see Jackson get back into some of the more unique or first time designs with the short series. I think for me, that's some of what I love the most. But especially if you never got a hold of some of those older decks, I think it's cool that you have a chance to see this new rendition of the currency decks. But enough about that, let's get into Silver Certificate. All right, so it's inspired by Silver Certificates, which were a type of banknote that were given out in the US from the late 1800s until like the 1960s. They were a little bit different from normal currency in that you could actually trade Silver Certificates for silver coins or silver bullion. So they actually had a hard backing of precious metal somewhere. And they were noted, even though they looked a lot like regular US bills, they were noted by the blue seal on them, which denoted them as silver certificates. Now there were some that had different colors, red or brown, but the majority of them had that blue seal. And so that's the inspiration behind this deck. The tuck itself is done in a style that's really similar to some of the previous ones, like I showed before, done in very simple feel to it overall. Matte gray finish on this tuck case, or silver if you will, and that bright blue harkening back to the blue seal on the original Silver Certificates. The foil has a really bright shine to it, but the detailing here is really minimal overall. All you get is that blue border and then the small text Silver Certificate by Jackson Robinson. You also see here that that sort of shiny band around the edge of it kind of gives you a cool extra little bit of texture all the way around. Nice, interesting touch to this one. As you turn to the side, so you have a simple 52 on one side and on the other. Back is almost completely blank except for that blue border. Bottom has your ad copy for King's Wild Project as well as expert playing cards who printed the deck. Top just has the name of the deck again, Silver Certificate. And as you open up the inner flap, you get a very simple 52 that's peeking out through that thumb cutout and number 13. So that is the look at the tuck case. Very clean, very simple look to it overall, but kind of maintains that elegant feel to it at the same time. So there's the tuck case, but let's get into the cards. All right, starting with the back design. Now you'll see right off the beautiful engraving style work that Jackson does on this one. This is again inspired by the original back design, but finished with brilliant blue foil. It's done in a technique where all the foil is printed, and a lot of the detail you see here is printed over the top of the foil, which gives everything this sort of glowing look and gives you a little bit of like gradation in the colors. Even though it's just one color of foil, the ink printed on top can kind of give it different gradients and textures all the way through. Right in the middle, you have those two seals meant to mimic the original Silver Certificate seals, but these are, of course, King's Wild seals. And then lots of ornate detail all the way around in that engraving style. And then the banner at the top that says Novum Vexillum, which means new standard. Finishes out with that sort of grayish looking poker style border, nice thin around the edges. So there's the back design, really brilliant with the foil. Love the shine on this one. Of the three decks, all of which have foil, including the previous 2 months, this one has to be my favorite of the three. Then we get to the cards. You get a couple of extra cards to kick it off. Now, interestingly, these are not the Jokers that were included in the original Silver Certificate deck. In fact, these were the Jokers that were from the original Federal 52 deck. I think it's an interesting choice on Jackson's part. Not sure why he made it, but he actually used the same Jokers on both this month's deck and the previous 2 months. In fact, all of the face cards are going to be exactly the same. The original Silver Certificate deck had its own 2 Joker cards and a different Ace of Spades, but this one has the same as the Silver Certificate, or the Federal 52 deck. That said, they are beautiful in their own right. Both of them, just like the court cards are going to feature, all have characters that are drawn directly out of bits of currency. So here on one of the Jokers, for example, you have the eagle soaring on there. This one comes from a Series 1861 $50 interest note. And the one addition you'll see here is that little three of diamonds, I think it is, in his mouth there. So you get a little fun card reveal with the eagle there. But lots of details all the way through that background feel, the banners across the corner with the Federal 52 on them. Just a really great look to it overall. The other Joker features Lady Electricity. This one comes from a Series 1896 educational note. The original Lady Electricity was sort of a commemorative of some scientific achievements that were done on currency. She was actually pictured holding a light bulb in the original, but on this one, she has that Ace of Spades or I think it's an Ace of Spades in her hand. So again, really brilliant look to it overall. Lots of heavy use of foil throughout this. And you'll see that on pretty much every card. The 4 aces are all impressive. Just like before, these are going to be the same aces that you saw in the Federal 52 and the Gold Certificate decks if you have the previous 2 months. Each one of them features kind of a bill look to them overall. So the Ace of Spades has that spade pip in the center and the little elements that really resemble a dollar bill, including things like the serial number or the signature of the treasurer. But they're of course swapped out in King's Wild style. So this one, you've got the treasure of King's Wild. Let's see if we can zoom in so you can see that a little better. So on one side, you've got the treasure of King's Wild with Jackson's signature there. And then the serial numbers here on all these bills are going to be dates that are actually significant in Jackson Robinson's life. So here you've got April 19th, 1978. One of the touches that I really like on this one shows up in the background. Let me zoom back in so you can see that. See those little fibers that are kind of twisting through here? That's something that's actually common on a lot of bills as a security feature. You'll have these little cloth fibers if you look in real close. One of the ways that you can identify a genuine bill versus a counterfeit one. So nice little touch to include those in the background. The other 3 aces all kind of follow suit. You'll see a little bit more red, of course, on the red cards, but they have that same overall design. I think it's really well done. I will say the foil on these looks a little bit on the dark side, depending on the lights that you hit it in. You get it in the right light and that silver really glows, but you get it in the wrong light and it kind of takes on a much darker feel. You can see like there in the Ace of Clubs, you lose almost all the detail. So would have liked the foil to be maybe a little bit on the brighter side. Maybe it would have looked a little bit better in my opinion, but still beautiful artwork on those aces. All right, the number cards, again, are going to feature the same design that we saw in the previous 2 months. All of them feature these fairly standard spade pips, although they are outlined with silver foil that you can see glowing there. Nice, easy to read pip and index in the corner as well. And they feature this really beautiful engraving style watermark in the background that features that King's Wild logo. As you go through, you'll see small pips, but fairly standard layout on them, nothing too out of the ordinary. And then as you get into the red cards, you'll see the watermark changes, still equally beautiful, kind of like flowing ribbons around it. And of course the red pips now outlined in that silver foil. And then we go into the clubs. Again, a new watermark on these. This watermark almost looks like its own club. And finally into the hearts with a 4th watermark style. So really nicely done on the number cards. Again, wish there had been some variation from the previous decks, but these are fairly true to the originals. All right, then we get into the courts. Once more, the courts are going to be the same courts we've seen in the previous month, but I'll fire through and give you guys a feel of who all these different courts are. Each one of them is going to pull characters from actual currency, not to mention the elements and the borders you see here that also come from currency or inspired by currency, but they're really pulled together in these classic style courts. So like in this one, for example, in the Jack of Spades, we're looking at Grover Cleveland, who came from a $1,000 note. But Grover Cleveland's been given the garb of the Jack of Spades, just so he fits in on a card. He's even given his own little handlebar mustache there that he doesn't have on the original bill. But beautiful detailing, heavy use of foil once again. And as you tilt in the light, you can really see some of those details pop up. Granted, they do kind of disappear if you hit it in a darker light like that, but still really beautifully done. The other Jacks, the Jack of Diamonds here features Thomas Jefferson from the $2 note. Jack of Clubs looks at Ulysses S. Grant from the 2004 $50 note. And last but not least, the Jack of Hearts features James Garfield from a series 1882 $5 bill. This one's one of my favorite. I love the beard that he's got on this one. So you can see a last of the Jacks. The Queens, in some cases, Jackson had to draw a little bit deeper, go to some slightly more obscure characters for these, just because there's not that many females featured on bills. But the first one is a little bit more common. This one's Lady Liberty on the Queen of Spades. She appears across certain bills. In fact, this one draws from the series 1874 $50 note that she appeared on. But you'll also see depictions of Lady Liberty on lots of different coins throughout U.S. history. Fictional character, but a huge impact on U.S. currency. The Queen of Diamonds. This one depicts something that's a little bit of an interesting look for me. This one comes from a 5-cent military payment series. It's an unknown character, but a beautiful looking image. Love the style of the artwork. Those hits of foil really look great when you look at them in the right light. Queen of Clubs. This one's Martha Washington, the wife of George Washington, who we all know appears all over $1 bills. But did you know that his wife also appeared on a $1 bill back in 1896? And so she gets a spot on the Queen of Clubs. And last but not least, the Queen of Hearts. This one's another unknown character, again from a military payment certificate back in 1961. And so there's her. Good bit more empty space around her on the Queen of Hearts. And last but not least, we get to the Kings. And the Kings are arguably the most famous of the characters from U.S. currency that there are. The King of Spades started out is Alexander Hamilton, comes from the series 2004 $10 note here. And I love the addition on these of the banner here, Rex Legones, which is Latin for King of Spades. So nice little extra touch. Love the detailing on these, just that big bold look. King of Diamonds, here's Benjamin Franklin, or Rex Adamus. Benjamin Franklin appears all over the $100 bills, and so he gets a spot on the King of Diamonds. And then we get to the King of Clubs. This is George Washington. We saw his wife before, but George Washington appeared on a series 1896 $1 note and still appears on the $1 bill today. So Rex Fustibus is King of Clubs on his banner there. And last but not least, the King of Hearts, oddly missing his banner. Not sure if that was an error in printing or not, but the King of Hearts is none other than Abraham Lincoln. Abe Lincoln appears all over our $5 bills. Very famous for that. So Abe Lincoln on the King of Hearts. Beautiful artwork as always. Again, I wish there'd been some variations from the previous year's decks, or previous month's decks. Don't love that it's the same card faces with just different foiling on them, but beautiful artwork just looking at this deck on its own. As far as handling, these are printed by Expert Playing Card Company on their cardistry stock, and they're done on a finish that Jackson's really been working on with Expert Playing Cards. The fanning on these is actually impressively good. It's a thicker stock, definitely doesn't dribble or fan nearly as well as some of the other decks that I'm sure you're used to, but the fanning and the smoothness of this is actually pretty impressive. They're actually getting a really slick look to them overall. Some of Jackson's first experimentation with Expert had some really rough handling, so it's nice to see that getting rounded out in some of these decks. That said, I don't think this is a deck that many people are going to use for gameplay or cardistry. This is really probably going to sit more as an art and collector's deck for most people. Now, this is not the only version of the deck. There's actually a limited and a gilded version of the deck. I don't get the gilded version, but I do get the limited that I can show you guys. It's the same basic style to it overall, but kind of inverted colors. So now we've got a blue tuck with silver foil instead of the silver tuck with blue foil. Everything else is the same except the addition of this gold sticker on the back, which denotes this as the silver certificate number 265 out of a 600 edition, 600 deck edition. So there's the silver certificate limited deck. Same cards inside, that's why I don't open this one. I leave this one sealed. Exact same deck, but that changed out tuck case and the numbered seal. So that's it. That is this look at the silver certificate deck. Overall, I think if you look at this deck individually, great deck. If you look at it combined with the previous 2 months deck, I think it's really a disappointment that he didn't swap out to use the Jokers and the Ace from the original silver certificate and opted to keep the same faces to the cards as the previous month. I think that's really, to me, the big disappointment in this one. But for the art style and that chance to really appreciate the silver certificate deck for yourself, if you never picked one up back in the day, I think this deck is a really, really nice one and one that you'll enjoy. So that's it for now. That is this look at the silver certificate from King's Wild Project. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.